The G7 group of wealthy countries has pledged $389 million to assist millions of people affected by the Boko Haram insurgency in northeastern Nigeria. The G7 is expected to support efforts by the UN and other aid agencies in helping victims of the conflict.
A statement from the UK High Commission in Nigeria says Britain is leading the coordinated move by the G7 countries to provide humanitarian assistance this year. The Commission called for more efforts to ensure safe access to humanitarian workers, saying that in northeastern Nigeria, communities suffer daily the consequences of war, including the estimated 1 million people inaccessible to humanitarian actors due to insecurity. British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Catriona Lang, said that it was vital that Britain acts now to avert further deterioration in the food security situation of millions of people affected by the conflict. In February, the UN had launched an appeal fund for $1 billion to help more than 8 million vulnerable people in northeastern Nigeria. The ongoing conflict, which is now in the second decade, has killed more than 30,000 people and uprooted millions of others from their homes in Nigeria and several neighboring countries. The G7 leaders had met in London last week, where they made a commitment to urgently provide an initial £5 billion in humanitarian assistance to a number of countries around the world, including £1 billion to Yemen, South Sudan and Nigeria as soon as possible to save lives.
Well, for more on this story, we're now joined via Skype by Omoyele Sowore, who's a human rights activist and journalist in Abuja, Nigeria. Always good to talk to you. Thanks so much, India, for joining us.
Thank you for bringing me on. Thank you.
So $389 million sounds like a lot, but when we look at the size of the problem, the number of people, perhaps it isn't that much.
No, it's not a lot of money. It's going to be a drop in the bucket for any reasonable assistance to people who are displaced by Boko Haram. We shouldn't be talking less than $1 billion starting.
So describe the situation on the ground for people caught up in this conflict. What are they dealing with?
Well, they're dealing with constant attacks. They're dealing with the inability of the Nigerian government to protect citizens. And as we speak, Boko Haram has expanded territory into about 4 Nigerian states out of 36. And they're controlling talk, they're collecting taxes, they're preventing farmers from going out to farm. And people are just generally refugees, what they call internally displaced persons in Nigeria, in their own country. And so my other worry is that this money, no matter how little it is, gets to the right people. That's the biggest problem. Corruption is the big issue here.
There was a time, if I remember, that Boko Haram appeared to have been defeated. And then there was, of course, that humiliation of one of the Boko Haram leaders being shot by police quite publicly. How is it that Boko Haram was allowed to pick up and grow to what it is now?
It happened because decades of military rule in Nigeria led to the politicization of the military. And what practically happens is that military leaders in Nigeria just did not want a strong military because they don't want to be deposed in the frequent coups that were the issues in the 90s. So they killed the military. And when the civilians came, the process of recruitment into the military became very nepotistic and favoristic. You know, it's who you know. And a lot of incompetent people were recruited into the Nigerian army. And you had generals who don't want to fight, who don't go to war. They like to be in the officers' mess to drink beer and, hang out. So, and then when you add that to the very dangerous cocktail of corruption, this is the result you got. Last week, we had to stage a protest in Abuja here to get these young people you saw who were abducted from the college released. And we still have over 17 college students who are in captivity as we speak, who have not been rescued. The military is just incapable. I mean, incapable of doing much because of corruption. They keep stealing monies meant for defense, so meant for purchase of weapons. The conditions of service of the officers that are fighting and soldiers fighting on the war front are terrible. And on top of that, they lack air power. They don't have air cover to carry out so many of the kind of sophisticated attack needed to demobilize Boko Haram. So, and then on top of that, you then have a violation of human rights that is synonymous with the Nigerian army.
How can one of the world's top oil producers have a lack of capacity in terms of military might?
Well, the question you should ask is what happened to proceeds of oil sales? We've sold over $500 billion worth of oil. And the proceeds are there in the UK, where they're buying fantastic mansions in France, Riviera. They buy private jets, and in the US, in Potomac. So when you have a very rapacious political class whose only interest is to steal and pillage, that is what you get in return for it. When they ask the military generals to go and buy weapons, they don't buy weapons. They just hide the money somewhere. And when they do, they buy weapons that are substandard. So it's not only the military alone, it's affected every facet of Nigerian life. Our schools are in shambles. We don't have hospitals. The US president had to donate ventilators to Nigeria when COVID started last year, 200 ventilators, because the entire country didn't have up to 20 when COVID struck.
So what can the international community do? We've got the G7 saying, look, there's $390 million. What else can be done to solve this once and for all? Because my fear is you can put money into the problem, but if the problem itself isn't being dealt with, you'll keep pouring money into the problem.
Well, they have to be honest about it. One thing that we must not shy away from is that these European nations are also the places where our leaders hide stolen loot. It is high time we discuss the issue of repatriation of loot and not allow African leaders, not only Nigerian leaders, to go buy mansions, air jets, or hide and loot money in European banks, because the banks are there. They're the ones who are involved in this massive looting of African resources. So it's not enough to just carry out this tokenistic support or aid. Africa must be allowed to stand on its own. And it includes not supporting these incompetent African leaders when they come to power, or supporting them when they refuse to leave power. So the G7 nations also must stop hiding behind one finger of their neo-colonial agenda on the continent of Africa. Let Africa be, and let African people choose their leaders, and don't support criminals and looters who hide money in European banks. If we can take all our money back, Africa will be doing very well.
Why do you think that there is this lethargy then by these Western nations? Is it the oil?
It is. They have interest here, and it's real. They're not just going to fight, the way they will protect their own citizens when they're getting resources from here to support their own economy. So that's what they call economic diplomacy. You just look the other way when your friends who are providing oil and access to their own wealth for your own good do bad things, and then and once in a while you come around and try to be sympathetic. But that should not be the way to solve this problem. And I know nobody wants to hear this. People want us to be clapping for Europeans when they give us, these tokens. But if Africans are allowed to just run Africa the way Europeans run their own countries and continent, we would not have the need for, this kind of, we won't be beggars in the international community. That's what we'll be reduced to. And it's because of the quality of leaders that the Europeans themselves support on the continent of Africa.
As you said earlier, Boko Haram seemed to be growing, its influence and its activity. I remember a time when Boko Haram was in the capital, Abuja, and attacked the headquarters of police. How can that happen without some kind of assistance with people inside the system?
Well, it's been noted, and I've covered this over the years, that there's a lot of support within this government for Boko Haram. In fact, the government claimed to have arrested a lot of financiers of Boko Haram, but refused to name them in the last 2 weeks. Plenty of people, and I think what they're doing is negotiating and collecting bribes and releasing them one by one. But if you think that was bad, 2 days ago, there was a robbery at the presidential villa. So that's the latest. That tells you something. Nobody's safe in Nigeria.
So in the meantime, the people on the ground, they're in a bad situation, and all they can look forward to is it getting worse.
Oh yeah, it's getting worse, and the world should be getting prepared for more bad news out of Nigeria. It's not my. I'm not hoping that it gets that worse, but that's wishful thinking. The practical situation on ground is pretty terrible. Nigeria has become very insecure. Niger State Governor, raised an alarm about last week that Boko Haram is hoisting flags very close to Abuja because Niger State is 2 hours from Abuja. And he's saying that Boko Haram has taken over a lot of local governments, and they're operating and they're hosting their flags. Today, we're reporting that Boko Haram is distributing palliatives for Salah in about 4 states in Nigeria today.
Boko Haram leaders, they're well known. People know what they look like, who they are. How is it they're allowed to just walk around?
Because of official complicity. The Nigerian government rehabilitates Boko Haram leaders to give them money, and they go right back to doing what they do. In fact, it's as if this is some kind of deliberate internal sabotage of Nigeria. And there's been a lot of conspiracy theories that this is an attempt by the current president and his cabinet to turn Nigeria into some kind of an Islamic state, that they are the ones deliberately encouraging the growth and the audacity of Boko Haram that you see now. And, you know, there's a lot of factors that point to the fact that that might be true.
All right, so it's a tragedy. It continues to play out. We see it. And this coupled with the other issues, gangsters playing out, the citizens on the ground really have so much to deal with. You're not optimistic that anything will happen despite this supposed interest by the G7?
No, I'm not optimistic. This is not the first time we've gotten aid and this kind of support. It won't go anywhere. They'll probably steal most of the money, and we'll go right back to where we are. Up until Nigeria deals with its leadership problems, there's no amount of band-aids that can solve our problems. And that's why a lot of us are calling for a revolution in this country.
Omoyele Sowore, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Thanks for your time. And you want to switch that television on to channel 404 in the background. Okay. Thanks so much, my brother. Take care. All right, that's where we'll leave that story. So the G7 group of nations are donating or pledging $389 million to help the victims of militant activity in the northern part of the country. But there you heard from Omoyele Sowore saying that that's just a small drop in the ocean of what's actually required.